Hi there, it's Tricia here at Club Scrap with a tutorial on how to make a set of two really adorable note card purses along with a dozen note cards, 6 for the inside of each purse. And the cool part about this particular formula is that you can use pretty much any card kit that Club Scrap has created where the papers start out as 12 by 12s. Or you can just use papers from your stash, but along with this little 4-page formula, you'll have all of the trimming instructions to make the purse and the 12 cards. So I've gone ahead and taken the Confetti card kit, and again, all the papers in the card kit start out as 12 by 12s, and I have I can look ahead a little bit and see where I'm going to end up, but I've never made this project with this paper before, so it's an experiment for you and me to do together. And I'm looking at the list of things I need to gather. 2 12 by 12A, print, C, D, E, F, and some brads and so on. So there's a list of ingredients that you need to gather together. And the structure of the purse is made out of the papers that you choose for paper A. So I'm going to use the dark blue for paper A, and then I'm going to use a print to decorate the purse. And then for the cards, I need 6 more sheets of paper. So I'll use from the Confetti card kit, the print, a yellow, 2 pink, and 2 light blue or 2 aqua colored pieces. And then from there, I'm going to use the cut aparts in the card kit to decorate the purse. So the first thing I'm going to need is my 12-inch paper trimmer. I'm going to go ahead and cut both paper A at the same time since they both get trimmed the same way. Before I cut, I'll just double check to make sure I know the grain direction of the paper is dipping easily from top to bottom, and that is the case here. So I'm just holding the paper by the edge, making sure it dips most easily top to bottom, and that matches the diagram that I have here with the arrow that points up and down. So that means the paper is dipping top to bottom. All right, let's trim this at 11 1/4. And then 10 1/2, and 9. This will grow up to become the actual purse, and then these longer, wider strips are scraps or can be used when you complete the greeting cards. I'll set those aside. And then you have 4 narrow pieces that grow up to become the purse straps. How clever is that? Okay, next, paper B. This is going to be the print. So if you're using a card kit, this would be a great time to choose the print. And I'm going to make sure the paper dips most easily top to bottom once again. And let's cut. This is just 1 sheet at a time here. We'll cut at 11 1/2, 11, 10 1/2, 10, 9 1/2, 8 1/4, 7, and 3 1/2. So the most recent 2 pieces I created, they can both be stacked and trimmed horizontally at 11 1/2. So you can do this at the same time. Make sure they're nice and lined up. 11 1/2. And 5 3/4. I'm going to set these 4 pieces aside. And then there are 2 smaller guys. Those are scraps. So I can set those aside to be disposed of. Now, there are 2 wide-ish pieces. These are only 1 1/4 by 12. We're going to trim those at 8 1/2 and 5. Now, the 5-inch pieces are actually scraps to be set aside. These are going to be used in making and decorating the purse. Then there are a total of 5 1/2-inch strips. 4 of them will be used for the purse, and 1 of them can be set aside as a scrap or for decorating your purse later. Now I'm going to take 2 sheets at a time here, and so I'll start out with this Confetti print, making sure it dips easily left to right, and I'm going to do that with the yellow that I selected also, so dipping easily left to right, and I'll cut at 8 1/2, both at the same time, rotate, trim at 11, and 5 1/2. These two 5.5 by 8.5s grow up to become card bases. I'm going to set these aside to be scored. And then this is a scrap that can be incorporated later. Then you have another strip. This measures 3.5 by 12. We'll cut horizontally at 9.5 and 4 3/4. These will become panels for our cards. And this also can be set aside to finish those cards later. Now, the next step is another repeat of the formula that we just did. So the pink, I'm going to let it dip side to side and trim at 8.5. Rotate, cut at 11, 5.5. 4 card bases have just been created. A scrap, or some scraps. And then we do have one more strip here, and we'll cut horizontally again at 9.5 and 4 3/4. We have some card panels. I'll put those with the card bases and set the scraps aside. For my next pair of sheets, I'm going to take 2 white plain and trim those horizontally at 8.5 and rotate, cut at 11, 5.5. Set these 2 pieces aside to be cards. We had 2 little strips for scraps, and that last 3.5 by 12 we'll cut horizontally at 9.5 and 4 3/4. We're going to have some panels, so the smaller ones are scraps. Now for paper F, we have 2 sheets required. I'll use this aqua color, and we'll cut at 10.5. Make sure it's lined up. 2 sheets at a time here. 10.5, 5 1/4. Now rotate that 5 1/4 and cut horizontally at 8 and 4. Stack all those up, and then take the next strip, cut horizontally at 8 and 4. Set those aside, and here we have some long strips. Those by the way, that on this cutting diagram there is no arrow, therefore the orientation of the paper grain direction doesn't really matter. Next, I'm going to grab my score pal. So here I have all of the panels that we trimmed in a nice big stack here, and I'm going to just take out all of the papers that are going to grow up to become card bases. Look at all these panels, and they're all going to nest very nicely, and we'll be able to interchange all the different colors. These can be scored, and you'll be happy to know, if you're all about efficiency, which I kind of am, you can place them horizontally into the score pal 2 at a time and score at 4 1/4. This is assuming you just want to make a standard. Maybe I have too many pieces here. Just 2 pieces at a time max, and only do this if you have a lot of experience with a score pal. If this is your first time using something like this, and you have one, and you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. Just do it 1 sheet at a time. But you can be successful if you press firmly, scoring 2 at a time. Okay, so now all of my card bases are scored and ready to go. If you don't have a score pal, not a problem. Just simply fold them in half. Because we did score with the grain direction, then we're even more likely to be successful. Now the next steps for this blue, the 9 by 12 that we trimmed at the very first start of our tutorial, these need to be scored as well. I think maybe just because I'm going to do them 1 at a time, and we'll score vertically. So make sure you see the 9 right up here, and we'll score at 1.5 and 7.5. Then rotate and score horizontally at 5 1/4 and 6 3/4. This is going to become the base of our purse and the side walls. But now we're going to flip the paper from bottom to top and score horizontally at 3/4 and 11 1/4. All right, I'm going to repeat that with the second piece. So place it in vertically at 9, score at 1.5 and 7.5. Then rotate. It's important that you do the rotating and not flipping. Score at 5 1/4, 6 3/4, And now we flip bottom to top, score at 3/4 and 11 1/4. Okay, and I can set that aside for now. We'll need the score pal just one more time a little bit later. Now, during this next step, you might want to pay close attention to step 5 of your instructions. There's an illustration there that can be really helpful. There are a set of 4 darts and then the removal of the upper 2 corners on the piece. So currently, it's like a mirror. It doesn't really matter which way it's oriented, but once you make these cuts, it will. So I'm going to start at the center of this piece. I'm going to cut just on the outside of this center score, one of the center score lines, to remove it. So I'm cutting along that score line, but just below it. And then I'm going to make a very small dart within this little center square here toward that intersecting score line to remove it. So do you see the dart that I made? That matches the picture. Now I'm going to go darting in here toward this and remove the actual score line. I'm doing this kind of carefully, but what I really am after here is this is the side wall of the purse, and I want the bottom of the wall to be straight. This is a tab that gets tucked in, and I want it to be easy to tuck and not have excess paper that I don't want. Same thing here. I want the bottom of the side wall of the purse to be straight. I'm going to do a complete rotation, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So if you want to even cut your small darts first, that might be easy. I don't know. Whatever works for you. And then I'm going to take out just the score line at a straight angle. And then you'll just pull that dart away. Lastly, just on one end, I'm going to remove, I'm going to do this so I can see the actual score line. I'm going to remove the score itself at a straight line, and the same thing over here. So I'm going to remove the corner on one end, both sides. Okay, so this is what I'm after. Straight lines, tabs, straight lines and tabs, and then straight outside corners. Because we're making 2 purses out of this project, now would be the time to do the same exact thing with the second piece. So now I have that completed on both purses. And the next thing we need to do is make some holes for our future. And you can pierce through both of the layers of this piece if you would like at the same exact time. And I'm going to measure them, and this is based on the sketch also. So this sketch on page 3 is really important, step 5, for knowing where to pierce these holes, which will eventually house our purse handle. Now, using the 0 center of my ruler, this paper is 9 inches wide. So at the outside edges, if I'm at 4.5 on each side here. So when I measure and mark, I'm going to go 1 inch from the score line. So here's the score line at 3 inches. I'm going to go into 2 inches, and I'm 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge. That puts me at about center. So 1 inch from the score. I'm going to turn the whole thing around. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I don't have quite as much paper here. So I'm centered if I'm at 3-ish inches. And I will once again mark it at 2. Okay, so now I have both of these pieces stacked up since they're essentially the same exact thing. And I'm going to place that over a cork board and use a paper piercing tool to pierce through both layers of my paper. You know, because it's efficient to make 2 purses at the same time, and why not do all of this prep work at exactly the same time? So again, that's centered left to right and 1 inch from the outside edge. Working 1 purse at a time, let's place the purse in front of us so it's vertical. And I want the bumps that are on the left, right, and center scored areas, I want those bumps facing down. So here I have a divot. And then here I have a raised bump. So that helps with the orientation. And next I'm going to take 2 of those panels that we trimmed. This is paper B, our print. And we're going to add them to the purse, just as shown in our picture that I have here. on step number 6. So the grayed areas represent the printed paper, and then we have to make sure that the removed corners are at the top. This is going to set us up for success when we actually make our purse. Then each purse also gets 2 straps and 2 nestable pieces of artwork for those straps. So I'll take my adhesive. You can use whatever type of adhesive you're used to. For this particular one, I'm going to use my ATG. You may also want to use bookbinding glue. And I'm going to center this piece so that the distance from the score lines is the same on 3 sides. You'll have a little bit more distance at the top. I'll repeat that for the other piece. Same type of a thing. The distance from all the score lines here is the same. And then the 2 remaining pieces get attached to the side walls. Now for the straps, when I nest those really narrow strips onto the purse straps, I'm going to do that with bookbinding glue, dispensed from a needle tip applicator. Once you finish one of these pieces, of course, do the same thing for your second purse. Okay, I took my needle tip applicator and I got all of these papers nested onto the straps. So these again are double thickness purse straps, which is kind of nice. And I've also found 8 coordinating brads. These are silver, so if you have mini brads in your stash, you'll need those to complete the project. And I'm going to enter the scoreboard one more time here and make a kind of a subtle little score. But this is going to give us a really nice finished product here. And we're going to score 1/2 inch from each end of my flap. So if I just place the strap into the score pal horizontally and score at 11.5, it's a little bit easier to have that tiny score line if you're right-handed, of course. If you're left-handed, you would reverse that and just score at 1/2 inch on the other side. But as a right-handed person, scoring at 11.5 is much easier than scoring at 1/2. And repeat that, of course, for all 4 of the purse straps. And then you'll fold over the strap. And because we have prepared our paper in advance to be with the grain, that should happen more easily than if you were fighting the grain. So I'm just kind of doing a little fold over at each end to coincide with that score line that we made earlier. It's a double thickness of paper, so just keep that in mind. Then, with your little cork board, if you have something like this set up, it's kind of nice. I'm looking at the back side of this strap, and I'm going to pierce right through the center of each one through all 4 layers of this paper. And that fold over does 2 things. It gives us a nice finished end to our purse strap, and it reinforces the strap itself so that it's stronger. I mean, not that you're going to be, going through the mall carrying your purse around with your wallet in it or anything, but it is nice to have a little bit of durability to something that has functionality as well. This is going to end up becoming where the strap will be placed. Okay, so notice I just folded this over, and I'm going to take my purse strap. I'll thread a brad through all 4 layers of paper here, so it's quite a few layers, and then through the folded over piece of paper on this end of the purse base, and then I've just spread those prongs at the back. Now the reason I made this little extra piece here is, again, a double reinforcement and to hide the prongs of the brad. So how convenient is that? Just thread it through and through this to attach it to the purse itself, and the prongs will then be hidden underneath that folded over strap. So what I can do now, and you would do this for all 4 straps on each end of each purse, you can take some of our bookbinding glue and add it to this flap and fold it over, and now the purse strap is attached and the prongs are hidden nicely between the 2 layers. So go ahead and install the straps for each end of each purse the same way. So you can start just by folding it over. Now this one, the strap, or the flap that you fold over is the full width of the purse, which is fine. It still gets attached the exact same way. So thread your brad, bring it through the front of the folded flap, and spread the prongs at the back and glue it down. Okay, now I have all of the straps, all 4 straps attached to both purses. So now is the time where you need to fold on those score lines. The reason I had you attach the printed pieces before we did any of this is it just serves as a really nice guideline for the order that we want to make our final assembly here. So the sidewalls that don't have any paper on them will be brought up first, then the tabs will be tucked in, and then the sidewalls that have the decor on them come in last to form the sidewall of the purse. Isn't that great how that works? So what you can do is place a little bit of adhesive on the tab and apply that to the plain sidewall, just making sure that you're forming a nice 90-degree angle there. And then once that sort of cures a little bit, you can bend back the other decorative sidewall. And I do like to do this step with bookbinding glue. I think it gives me just a nice, even, strong adhesion here. Just make sure, again, you're forming that box shape, that you're not bringing this in and it's not square. And it only takes a second. If you want, you can put the purse on its side and then press down from the inside to get it, really make that adhere smoothly. The same is true for the other side. So I'll put a little adhesive on the back of the short angled tab and then attach that to the sidewall that does not have paper, decorating it. And finally, bring down the remaining sidewall. And make sure it's nice and straight before you bring that in. And also what's nice about using the wet glue versus a dry glue is a lot of times you have, it's a one-shot deal if it's like an ATG, this type of a thing. So I only use this, I mean, if I need a little bit of time to, like as just right now, if I want to do some fine tuning, because of the fact that the glue is wet, it gives me the opportunity to do that. And you can control the amount of time that you have to make adjustments by using more glue. So less glue, less adjustment time. And now I do have a completed and super adorable purse. Now you can do the same exact steps with the second one, which I won't do right now on camera. I want to show you how these cards are going to finish up. Then I'm going to go home and rest. And when I come back tomorrow, I will finish the cards using what we've created, and I'll add either stamped images or maybe I'll adapt the printed cut-aparts that came with my card kit in order to make my cards. I'll probably mix some to be horizontal, others will be vertical, but either way, what's nice about this is I can distribute all of my card bases. Wow, there's a lot. There's more than will fit on camera, I think. We do have a dozen here. So I'll distribute all of those. And then I have, for every single card base, I have an aqua panel. So I can distribute all of those. And then for every aqua panel, I have my choice of all of these different colored panels, yellow, print, and white. So my goal here is to distribute and alternate colors to make all of my cards represent the different color options that we have. So just keep that in mind as you are creating your cards, that you want to make sure you have a lot of variety. So maybe I'm going to need to have some white here and just keep sorting out and dealing out all of your different options so that you have a good variety of cards and card bases. And then you can add artwork to the smallest panel on each card, and don't forget to add something to the middle as well. Okay, it's the next day and I'm back with all of my finished cards in my beautiful finished purses. Aren't they adorable? I just think this would make a wonderful handmade gift for a teacher or a girlfriend or really anyone. And I'm happy to report that I was able to adapt all of the cut-aparts that were included right in the confetti card kit to finish off my dozen cards. So each one originally, like I think this sentiment was made for a larger card. I was able to just trim around it, and whatever size it ended up being fit perfectly. And I used a bunch of the narrow strips from the trimmed cards. Like this came from one little scrap from the purse. So the blue is a nice anchoring strip here for this card. You know your old when, the candles cost more than the cake. I was able to incorporate the ribbons, the beautiful, I think we called this like a laser washi tape that came right in the kit. And I love how it takes on the color of the material behind it. So it's really kind of got a neat chameleon effect. I was also able to use, I mean, everything that I had in order to make the shaker cards as well. The confetti was right in the kit, and all I had to do was add some foam adhesive to make all of these cards come together. Even the plastic was available, the acetate, to make the window for the shaker cards. And these I trimmed even smaller and was able to get some really, really adorable greeting cards made for this collection. So this is the deluxe card formula number 7, and I hope you give it a whirl. As a reminder, use papers from your stash or any club scrap kit that features 12 by 12 papers. Good luck with your project. Have a lot of fun.